Hello everybody, I'd like to welcome you to The Space Industry by satsearch, where we share stories about the companies taking us into orbit. In this podcast, we delve into the opinions and expertise of the people behind the commercial space organizations of today who could become the household names of tomorrow. Before we get started with the episode, remember you can find out more information about the suppliers, products and innovations that are mentioned in this discussion on the global marketplace for space at satsearch.com.
Hi, and welcome to yet another episode of the Space Industry podcast by satsearch. Today, I'm your host, Narayan, one of the co-founders of satsearch. Today, we are recording a podcast with Alén Space, who is an end-to-end business solutions provider based on CubeSat platforms in Spain and has been working on the CubeSat standard for the last 15 years and also have been successfully acquired by GMV in the last year or so. So today we have here Antonio, who is one of the co-founders as well as the head of the business development at Alén Space. So Antonio, welcome to the podcast and look forward to speaking to you here.
Thanks, Narayan, for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. So off the bat, I would love to hear about what kind of applications do you see evolving in the CubeSat standard that has not been done already? Because I know that you guys have been involved with IoT applications and things like this. But I also read that you are now going into stuff like cybersecurity tests and inter-satellite links or PNT or so on. I would love for you to discuss briefly this evolution of low data rate applications, low fidelity ones, low pointing accuracy to these kinds of new applications that have now been emerging.
Yeah, from our point of view, how we see the applications and the technologies that are evolving and are creating a new opportunities on the market is that we have a knowledge for many years on technologies related with telecommunication, with the RF part of the radio part. So our understanding is that we have all this knowledge on this part with our products, our projects, and so on, that we can enter now. We are confident to enter in a new business lines or new project lines where we can provide this kind of technology. The focus is not so related to CubeSat itself, more related on what do you offer at the end, how your technology could be differentiated from the rest and how you can provide value to the customer at the end. So it doesn't depend on the customer if it's a government or it's an enterprise, but at the end, if we have something that is differentiated and is really, let's say, state of the art in terms of the technology, we think that there is an important field where we can play a little bit. And yes, in that sense, you mentioned some of them. Yes, in that sense, we worked on, for example, now we won a contract for ESA for cybersecurity. The project is called CyberCube. It's led by GMV Romania, and in there we are providing parts of the platform and as well as the hardware for the payloads and the satellite. At the end, it's a mission that focus on being able to provide an infrastructure, a configurable infrastructure in orbit to be able to test cybersecurity and cybersecurity experiments. It's like a space lab for cybersecurity for ESA. We put a lot of effort to win this contract because we understand that we have a lot of things to do on this sense, since we are providing most of the logic hardware, since OBCs, payload, software defense radar for payloads, and so on. So we can do a lot of things on here. So that's why we think it's important to be in front of this part.
When it comes to the evolution of the CubeSat standard itself, you guys have been obviously involved for this for a very long time. How have you seen this platform standard in terms of reliability or in terms of the performance evolve? Because obviously what CubeSats were 15 years ago had a very high failure rate. It had not a lot of advanced processing capabilities, not a lot of advanced pointing capabilities, not a lot of power capabilities. There's a lot of shortages that today has changed. What do you think has changed over this course of time, and where do you see all of this heading?
It's true that when we started, I remember we launched our first CubeSat in 2012. I remember by that time the statistics were something like 80% of CubeSats in orbit doesn't live for a month or something like that. It was really incredible. The amount of CubeSat that dying just to launch was dying in launch. We happily we can say that all of our CubeSats has have been working in space. All the missions have been successful, and it's something that we have as a flagship on our DNA. How this evolved? It's true that at the beginning, the power was not so much. Let's say the technology was not so good in terms if you compare it with today. But at the end, the evolution of why everything is going to satellites a bit bigger from 1U to 3U, 6U, 12U, 16U. And now that we are seeing that some companies are moving as well as something bigger like 50K or something like that. What we see at the end is the requirements on the applications, requirements on the service, requirements on the customer, but not for the satellite itself, but for the service that you want to provide. What we are seeing is we came from an academic part where 1U CubeSat that if make a beacon is extremely successful. Of course, the market is already discounted that. I think the market discount that the satellite should work. Maybe it's not always the case, but however, is the reality that you have to ensure that the satellite works, and then you can focus on the service that be better, have a good service. So how we understand this movement? Our movement goes for, as I said, is focus on the technology, on the applications, and providing something on value on the customer. So we probably will go for bigger platform in the future, but right now we are not offering it because we believe that the idea to go for a bigger thing is if you have something differentiated to go bigger. If you are going to do the same thing, just a little bit bigger, maybe it has no much sense from our point of view. So that's a little bit the point. Of course, there is physical restrictions that you have to face in terms of size. Of course, with 1U CubeSat, you cannot do the same things you can do with 6U or a 12U or whatever. But there are plenty of things that you can do. You mentioned previously the technology PNT, the project that we are working on, and we are really proud to be on this project. It's a project called LEO PNT. It's a big project from ESA. It's like one of the main projects for navigation. It's how they call it the future of navigation. So it's to provide PNT signals, positioning, navigation, and timing signals from LEO. So you receive the signals and the information from Galileo. You do, let's say, some maths inside the satellite. You do the payloads do a lot of calibrations with that signal and retransmit it to ground. Without you allow in the future, if this ends to be a full system, a full constellation providing LEO PNT, you allow to have centimetric precision in ground. Things like could allow things like autonomous UAVs, a lot of stuff that nowadays is a little bit tricky because the Galileo is so 20,000 kilometers above, so they have some physics limitations. So now you can have like extra layer of precision. And in that sense, for example, we are manufacturing 2 12U CubeSats and also provided the hardware of the payload or part of the hardware of the payload for providing this new service. Also, we are providing the payload or the hardware of the payload for a microsats that are going to be 4 satellites in our consortium, 4 microsats built by OHB. But at the end, if you see the technology that is on the ground on the bases, is our technology. And so it doesn't care if there is a 12U or a 16U or at the end, the idea is to demonstrate a technology. In this case, in our case with the 12U is going to provide signals for L and S bands for PNT. And this is made with a CubeSat. Focus on the technology, focus on have a nice project, a nice added value service is where we think that is what the market, not the market, the clients want. So that's our point of view.
That's great. So I was just reading the press release on this particular project that you mentioned about the LEO PNT one. It's quite a large project, almost 80 million euros. And you have 5 satellites and a whole bunch of partners. I think you listed something like 14 partners in the project or so on. So it's an exciting time because obviously you mentioned about precision positioning being made available to complement the Galileo system with this. So is this project demonstration with just the 5 satellites? And if the project is successful, what are you looking at? Are you looking at an extended constellation that is going to go into providing services full scale, or how do you see this evolving?
How we see it is for sure is as you mentioned, it's a big it's a big project. It's a big important project from ESA because it's true it's 80 million, but it's 2 contracts of 80 million. So for ESA, it's 160 million project. In our consortium, we are like 40 companies. It's a huge consortium. From our side, being in a core team with companies like GMB, OHV, Beyond Gravity, like Indra, like big companies that are on the market for many years, and you feel that they rely on you on such a specific and such a tremendous work is unbelievable. You mentioned 5 satellites, and its truth is there is going to be 5 satellites in orbit on the proposal, but we have to develop one extra as a spare that has one of the options of the contract is also to be in orbit. So if ESA is happy with our project, probably will be 6 satellites in orbit. So is the idea of how we envisage this project is at the end, sometimes you see a project that maybe doesn't make, you don't understand how makes sense, or how it's going to be something big, or how it's going to be something important for the people. Because at the end, we cannot forget that we work for the people, not for the people that make satellites. we work for the people that use satellites, even if they don't know that they are satellites behind the curtains. So sometimes you see a project that you cannot understand pretty well where is the connection with the reality. But in this case, it's tremendous. You can see, UAVs, autonomous. This can change a lot of things in our lives. So how we envisage the opportunity, or how we envisage how this could end. At the end, of course, Europe has to define if they are going to use it as constellation, if it works, because this is just a demonstration. So if it goes to a full constellation, or if it goes to hosted payload in other satellites, or how it goes. But for sure, it looks like they will want to do something on this. So for us, being in the front line, be the first that demonstrate this technology, be the first that deploy this technology, we see a tremendous future in this technology itself, and in the, let's say, added value services that could come as a future that we don't know yet what it could be. So we see a huge opportunity in front of ourselves. So that's the reason why I think GMV, as a leader of the group, make a tremendous effort to be on this project, because at the end, GMV is one of on ground is the biggest player in navigation for sure. And be ready to lead a full mission also in space is amazing. It's amazing.
So let's move on to something more on the use of CubeSats for also testing different kinds of new technologies and the implications for future missions at the end. And I guess we can talk a little bit about the CyberCube mission that you guys are involved in that. Obviously, today there's been a lot of focus on cybersecurity in the space industry, and the CyberCube mission is a partnership between GMB, Alén Space, ESA to look at testing some of the things for cybersecurity in the industry using the CubeSat standard. So can you walk us a little bit through on what kind of cybersecurity tests can be done on CubeSats, and why CubeSats may be an interesting form factor to do such tests, and what would be the implications for maybe larger satellites or bigger missions based on such a IOD based on CubeSats?
Yes. Yeah, briefly, when we saw the opportunity of the CyberCube was when you see a project and this, I don't know why I didn't think about this. This is amazing. It looks like is someone reads your mind, even if you didn't realize it's on your mind. So it's something that when we see it, and when I say we, I mention GMV and us, when we see this project, they say, okay, for sure, we are really interested on work on this project. Because in this case, is led by GMB Romania, has a lot of knowledge in terms of historical development with projects related with this technology. So what we see is, okay, and it's made in a CubeSat. So this is the kind of things that I mentioned before. The CubeSat itself is almost a curiosity. is not related with the size of the satellite. The important thing is the payload, the experiments that you are doing in there. So when we see that they ask for processing different bands at the same time, make verify security techniques like post-quantum, things of develop a hardware security model for IP cores, all this kind of, let's say, security stuff that I even didn't was aware of which amount of things we are able to do inside some of our developments is amazing. So for us, how we see this project is, this is a kind of, and we told this to Isa, this is the kind of the project that even ourselves are interested to use, because it allows you to test experiments of how the OVC work with the rest of the platform in terms of the onboard software and security of onboard software. Then this is now it's in a 3U, or it's going to be in a 3U, but this is completely exportable to 6, 12, 16 microsats. It's the same. It's a logical satellite, let's say. So the size is not a problem. So for us, having protections for, secure boots, root of trust, be able to measure spectrum monitoring and be measured that you can be having some problems in the spectrum, or maybe having jamming or other kind of attacks is something that we envisage that is for sure is something of our key parts, our knowledge, and is something that we can export in the future for other projects, other products, other clients, other kind of satellites. So for us, developing this technology is amazing.
Great. From my perspective of knowing Alén Space, I would guess that I would bracket Alén Space's missions into two parts. One is more of these kinds of new technology developments and validating new technologies. The other is more of the constellations and the Atlantic constellations. And you have two things, right? So with both of these different streams that you have, the IOD, IOV, as well as the operational missions and operational constellations, how do you foresee Alén Space itself evolving when it comes to the standard? So would you continue working on the CubeSat standard and push towards, 16U, 27U? Or do you foresee that missions, when they get more into a deployed full phase, for example, let's say there is a requirement for this particular Galileo compensation LEO constellation for PNT, would that then become a bigger satellite and you are then looking at a bigger platform? Or how do you see Alén Space evolving, given that you have now these two different branches?
It's amazing that you mentioned the two different branches, because even ourselves internally we have different companies internal. It's not a different companies at the end, it's just one company, but conceptually sometimes we see like that. For example, you mentioned constellations. We launched the first batch of 5G Narrowband IoT constellation for Sateliot last August. Successfully, the satellites are performing pretty well, and we're really happy with that. And of course on this part of the be standardized, be constellation oriented, be faster, reliable, and so on that part. And if you see at the same time, the payload, the hardware of the payload, the radio, is our development. So how we envisage the future, or how we envisage how we work on the company is we develop technology. And we develop amazing state-of-the-art technology for many projects that allow us to enter in projects or in contracts that could take advantage of this technology that we develop. So, for example, we developed the first version of the radio that Satellite is using. The radio for Satellite is let's call it like a tailored of one of our products. So how we envisage, we develop this product internally with our funds, with some projects that we get, and that allow us to provide a really nice product to our customer, and then allow us to provide like the full mission, because nobody better than us know how it works. Nobody better than us know how to do the best of take out of the most of the payloads that us we are building the satellites. For us, this part is like a wheel. You develop technology that allows you to go to more contracts, that allows you to develop more technology, and so on. So probably in the future, we are not right now. We are working up to 16U is what we are working now, but we don't tight ourselves, or we don't block ourselves on this size. We can see bigger satellites in our roadmap. We can see different kind of satellites in our roadmap. We can see how the technology and the market will push us, and we will push it. But at the end, we are always centric on the technology and on the added value for the customer, not just let's go bigger because everyone goes bigger and do the same, but with a bigger structure. For us, is not useful for the customer.
All right. So finally, I would love to have your thoughts on how the market itself is evolving, because obviously we talked about what is Alén Space doing and your own internal strategy and the missions that are there. And now we can talk a little bit about how you see the market evolving, because obviously we have seen this trend where a lot of the CubeSat developers, including the US and in Europe, who are originally for working on the CubeSat form factor, are all moving up into the higher form factors in microsatellites. This may also be because of the push in the Earth observation sector, because obviously bigger cameras need bigger apertures and bigger power and all of these things, which are driving up the platform sizes for these companies, right? But obviously in the telecommunications applications, the requirements may not be as stringent when it comes to the physics of the missions, especially when you're working on lower data rate and lower connectivity kind of requirements that are out there. Where do you see this market evolving? Do you see that the Earth observation will all be pushed towards microsatellites, and the telecommunications will be split between some of them in microsatellites and some of them in CubeSats and so on? And of the final part of that I would love for you to answer is, where do you still see the CubeSat future in all of this?
Oh, okay. Many questions. My idea is, if we split it, it's a little bit how I see it, is how I mentioned it before, is, and you say really is the driver in the Earth observation is they need bigger camera. It's not like they go to a bigger satellite and then they put a bigger camera. They need a bigger camera because they need a more GS, better resolution, whatever, and so they put a bigger camera, so they have to manufacture a bigger satellite. In telecommunications part is the same. Is if the technology that if the service, the technology that you are gonna be provided needs a bigger antenna, needs a bigger power, needs a bigger so on, the satellite is gonna get bigger. And this is not a matter of CubeSat or not CubeSat. It's the reality that it was. At the beginning was 1U CubeSats making IoT, then was two CubeSats, 3U, 6U. Then we are seeing that are working on 6U, on 12U, on communications. I guess that when the technology or when the customer or the technology arrives to a point where going to a bigger technology pays the bill for making a bigger satellite, but not so much bigger than you face with the traditional huge satellites. When this technology arrives to this point, then the satellite is going to get bigger in all the market, in Earth observation, in telecommunication, navigation. It doesn't matter. It's going to be this way. So probably there are going to be applications at the end. For me, it's not a terms of satellite; it's a terms of applications. There is going to be applications and sectors that will need or can be provided by one kind of satellites. Things like you mentioned, low data rates, IoT, that are being provided by really small satellites like pocket cubes. You can see high band communications that are provided by huge satellites. So at the end, it's a matter of market, it's a matter of size. So we think, or I think better, I think that, I don't know if there's going to be a split in terms of the CubeSat, not CubeSat, but probably there's going to be a split in terms of which kind of market you are addressing. And in this sense, maybe there could be layers. Maybe there is a market that could be attended by some part of the market with a microsat, some part of the market with a bigger satellite, and some part of the market with a lower satellite that could be CubeSats or not. I don't know if I understand. I answered your question, but I think is my idea.
No, absolutely. That's how we see this market evolve as well, because at the end, it just is a question of how do you sustain the infrastructure up in space, and that comes from how many users are able to use a particular service that is based on any standard at the end. As you already mentioned in the episode, no one cares if the signal is coming from whatever, a tower or a UAV or a satellite. And if it happens to have from a satellite and it's useful, people will use it. And so long as the application continues to have users, this will reflect on the infrastructure side as to what standard will be used or what size will be used. So that's definitely how we see it. Obviously, there may be different pockets depending on the revisit time, depending on how much is a duty cycle connectivity that is required. So all of that is obviously depending on the applications, but we don't see a world obviously where only microsatellites dominate or only CubeSats dominate. The applications dominate, but the standards will then be reflected based on the application within the infrastructure side.
And there is a point that sometimes is not forgetting, but because it's like a huge point, that is the deployment cost. No, the launch cost. So of course, if the launch cost, it will manage to somehow drive the market, because at the end, if you are having a huge cost of launching, it's going to be difficult to deploy in one technology specific, so on one size specific, if a big part of the cost is the launch itself. Yeah, totally agree. At the end, is the application. Is the application that matters, is the performance that matters, and it's the market that matters. I don't know how the market will evolve, how the market will stabilize in some size specifically, because maybe we find a standard that matches everything. But in any case, I am not much worried, because I know that wherever the future will be, I know we will be ready to provide the solution that is going to provide value for the customer.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you so much for taking the time, Antonio. I think this has been a fascinating conversation. It's always great for us to learn from the people on the ground like you, who are actually building those missions, and we are there observing the market in that sense, and we can have this conversation back and forth to know what is our perspective, what is your perspective, and it always gives a holistic proof of the market to the people listening as well. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Okay, no, thank you Narayan, for the work you do, because you do an amazing job in satsearch, and this podcast is an example of that. It's an example of how you can provide more value to the market, more value to the ecosystem, more value to the people, even that is nothing in the space industry. So thank you for your job.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Space Industry by satsearch. I hope you enjoyed today's story about one of the companies taking us into orbit. We'll be back soon with more in-depth, behind-the-scenes insights from private space businesses. In the meantime, you can go to satsearch.com for more information on the space industry today, or find us on social media if you have any questions or comments. To stay up to date, please subscribe to our weekly newsletter, and you can also get each podcast on demand on iTunes, Spotify, the Google Play Store, or whichever podcast service you typically use.